I love to talk about digestion because it's the cornerstone of our health. It's like the master system in our body. Unless we are breaking down and absorbing our food well, we're not going to be performing at our best. So what I'm going to do first is go through just a bit of science, you know, the reason, so you can understand the digestive system and how it functions. So I'm going to keep a top line and then I'll go into the food side. So, you know, the types of foods you should have to make sure you're keeping your digestive system nice and healthy. So before I start, a few of you know me already, but in case anyone doesn't, and I'm going to cover this very briefly, is I originally was from a business and marketing background, and I worked in banking and advertising for a few years, about 10 years. And then when I was in my early 30s, I started to get different health issues. So these were all health things that, like, nothing was officially diagnosed, but my energy went down, my digestive function. I always remember the first thing that went off par was my digestion. I just remember I could feel it in my stomach, and I got all the tests done, standard tests, nothing was showing up, everything was clear. And it was then when I started studying, I started exploring nutrition. And it's called now functional medicine, actually, what I studied back in 2007. So now it's kind of become a little bit more mainstream, as in medical doctors in the States are training in functional medicine because they're seeing more people with chronic illness. And when I say chronic illness, it's the likes of things that's labeled as fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, all kind of syndrome type disorders. You know, type 2 diabetes would be a chronic illness as well. So these are all on the increase, and it's all related to lifestyle medicine. So it's not like there's a drug, you know, some drugs obviously will help in certain areas of a condition. For example, if you're suffering from depression as a result of having the illness, then there's a medication for that. But what I learned was, I learned about the science of each of our body systems. So like our digestive system, our liver function, our hormones, our endocrine system, and how they're all interlinked, how they're interconnected. One system, if it goes out of balance, has a knock-on effect on the other system, which is why someone with the likes of ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, you feel like your whole body is sick, because all the systems in the body are not working optimally. They're all off par, as such, off balance. And it's trying to get them back in balance again. So that's what I learned on that 3-year diploma. It was a diploma, but it was really a degree. It was quite intense. And so from that, I learned myself, and then through seeing a nutritional therapist, how I could get myself better from all the symptoms I had, which was classified as chronic fatigue syndrome at the time. I ticked all the boxes. And over time, thankfully, I got well. So the nutrition clinic then I set up is discovernutrition.ie. So you'll find loads of information about me there. And then in the mainstream world, I work with VHI Healthcare, and that's going in and giving talks to their corporate clients on nutrition. So their lunchtime talks to try and, I suppose, you know, in the corporate world, people are expected to perform at their best, and there can be burnout in the corporate world. So my aim is to go in there and educate people on looking after themselves. And I'm very open about that. I'm not afraid, oh, I'm going into a big corporate here. I will tell them the benefits of taking time out and not pushing themselves to the limit. And at the end of the day, the company will get more out of their staff as a result. And I also lecture then at the Irish Institute of Nutrition and Health in Bray, where I work. We're actually now the office closed last July, so we're all working online from home. But it's working really well. The student numbers are growing too, because everyone's really interested in nutrition now. It's brilliant. So it's an exciting place to work, and it all kind of feeds into the work that I do with my own clients. So that's me. And so, like I said, I'm all about functional medicine, which is looking at the root cause of an illness. So it's digging deeper. It's like the layers of an onion. You're peeling back the layers of the onion to see, well, what is at the root cause of this particular health issue. So it's system-based. So like I said, we're looking at how each body system is interconnected. So for example, if your digestive system is not working right and you're not breaking down and absorbing your food, you're possibly getting food intolerances, and that's building up in your system, putting your liver under pressure, because the liver has to break down and detoxify all our toxins and our food as well. So, you know, a digestive system that's not working right is going to have an impact on your liver. And then the liver signs it's out of balance. It's say headaches, more headaches, maybe nausea, that type of thing. Bags under the eyes, dark circles under the eyes. You know, it can be lack of sleep, but also the liver not working right. So that's the way we're trained. We're trained to understand the signs and symptoms when each system is out of balance, and then how to treat that through nutrition and lifestyle changes. So I don't know if you've heard the term from Hippocrates, so the father of medicine. He believed that all disease begins in the gut. And the latest research around many diseases is supporting this view. So there was a book out a couple of years ago from Cork scientists in the University of Cork called Psychobiotic Revolution. Very interesting book, and it's written easy enough to understand, like from a layman's point of view. You don't have to be a scientist to read it, but it goes into the detail, the health of the microbiome and why that's so important. And now more and more research is going into all the different strains of bacteria and how they can help certain types of illnesses. So certain strains for IBS, certain strains for depression, and so on. So there's more research going into that. So yeah, so the digestive system has loads of different roles. But if you just think about it as it's trying to extract the goodness from your food. So the digestive system is doing many things. So it's trying to extract all the goodness from our food. It's absorbing our nutrients, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Most of the absorption takes place in the small intestine, and I'll show you where that is if you're not aware of it. And then it also defends against foreign invaders. So if you've got any viruses, bacteria, it's helping defend those, because 80% of our immune system is in our GI tract, is in our gastrointestinal tract, in our digestive system. So we need a healthy digestive system to have a healthy immune system. And it detoxifies certain foods and toxins as well. So, so then basically, if it's not working right, the roles can become confused. Toxins are absorbed into the bloodstream when they shouldn't be. Food passes through the gut. So it's almost like the lining of the gut is like a sieve. And if little holes are in the sieve, the food particles are in here, and they're passing into the bloodstream and causing a reaction then in the blood, because they shouldn't be in there. They should have been digested and broken down and then going in. So, so that's when this, I don't know if anyone's heard, a leaky gut can happen. And bacteria and yeast are left there, and they're growing. They're there and they shouldn't be, and they're going to cause problems. So for food to nourish us, it must be digested. So that is within the internal space of the gut. So when you actually eat something, right, and it goes into your mouth and it goes down your esophagus, down that tube, and into your small intestine and your large intestine, I have a picture of that on the next page, that's still outside your body. It's like in the tube, but it has to be. So I remember when I was learning about this first, I was going, oh, I never thought about that. The food is still outside your body. It has to be broken down and absorbed and then go into the bloodstream, into our whole body. But when it's down, it's swallowed, and it's in our esophagus and small intestine, that's still outside the body. So it has to be absorbed then through this gut wall and into the blood and the lymph. So that's the important point, is to making sure that your digestive system is healthy, that everything is being absorbed properly and then assimilated, so it goes into your tissues. So this is just back to your anatomy, is like a picture of the GI tract here. So your teeth here, really important, your salivary gland. So that gland there releases amylase, the first enzyme that breaks down carbohydrate, breaks down starch. So you want to be making sure you're releasing enough of that to break down your carbohydrates, because they take time to break down and absorb and go down into your stomach. There's your stomach. And then it goes from the stomach into your small intestine. So see that there where I'm moving my cursor, that's the small intestine, a really long tube. And that's flattened out, it's the size of a tennis court. So it's quite big. So that's really important, that small intestine is absorbing all of your food. And then it goes from the small intestine into this large intestine, which is this tube here that runs at the very top. So it goes up there on the left-hand side, across and down. So that's your large intestine, and then out then to the bum. So you'll see here the gastrointestinal tract. So you might talk about digestion. You might think, oh, that's just stomach, but it's not. It's your mouth, it's your pharynx, it's your esophagus. This here, that, you know, your esophagus is there going from your mouth down to your stomach, your small intestine, your large intestine. That's all your digestive system, plus these accessory structures like your teeth. So you need your teeth. So they say, there's a phrase, Chinese medicine, the stomach has no teeth. So in other words, you need to chew your food really well to make sure that everything's been broken down, so it's liquid when it goes into the stomach. Your salivary glands, like I said, they secrete enzymes to break down your food. Your liver helps break down food as well. It releases bile to help break down fat. Gallbladder, that stores fat. And pancreas, that releases loads of enzymes. So all of this is involved in your digestive system. So I just wanted to cover that, so you're aware that it's not just your stomach, it's not just your large intestine. All of these systems need to be working right, and those enzymes need to be released as well. Okay. This is just, this is basically saying, right, stomach acid is really important for breaking down your food, and chewing your food is really important. So, so for example, they say you need to chew your food between 30 to 50 times until it's like liquid. Now, who is doing that? Hands up, anyone that's chewing their food 30 to 50 times. If you are, brilliant. But I don't think many people are. So, but I might have someone coming to me and they might be only chewing their food 2 to 3 times, so swallowing it nearly whole. And I'd say try and chew your food at least 10 times. So try and aim for 10 times. That's why, I don't know if you went through a period yourself, or you might be now, where your digestive system is not working and you're not really hungry, or you, or even why older people sometimes are better off just having soups and stews, because you don't need to chew the food and break it down and have the, you know, they don't have the energy to break down your food, or you mightn't have the energy to break down and absorb your food. And say, for example, if you're having a bad day when your energy is quite poor, or a bad week, you're much better then to maybe have soups and stews, because they're much easier to digest. And then, you know, stick with the salads. Well, I find anyway, in the winter, it's harder to have salads. But, you know, save the salad for the day when your digestion is a little bit better. Because reason being, you need, well, obviously you need to be chewing your food really well. Then also your body needs to be releasing these enzymes to break down your food, and a HCl, which is stomach acid, to break down the food. So you need to be, I suppose, well for those to release to help break them down. And the Ohio State University, so they say, you know, try and chew softer foods 5 to 10 times, and then more dense foods. So like the likes of meat and maybe raw vegetables, raw salad, chew that then about 30 times. But that's then back to, if you feel your digestive system is not working right, then avoid meat, red meat, because it's harder to digest. You're better to go for fish. Fish is quite easy, you know, to break down and digest. So that's kind of really the points around that. So secretion. So yeah, our saliva glands, our stomach, our intestines, all of these systems, they secrete about 9 liters of fluid into the lumen. So when I say lumen, that's the inside, that's the esophagus, that's where your food is going when you swallow it. It's going down here. That's the lumen of your digestive tract. So they secrete all these liquids, which are made up of water, acids, buffers, enzymes. So the enzymes, buffers help balance your pH, so you're not too acidic. And enzymes then are, the key enzymes are digestive enzymes like protease, lipase, and amylase. They're actually, I don't know if anyone is on a digestive aid or digestive enzyme, but here's one I have here from Viridian. Yes, so Sarah's saying she is. So, you know, if you do suffer from digestive problems, obviously the first thing to do is the basics, like chew your food well, be mindful when you're eating. There is, if you don't want to buy supplements, there's the likes of apple cider vinegar, if you can tolerate it, like if you're not allergic to it. A tablespoon of that in warm water about 20 minutes before you eat is really good to help release those digestive enzymes to break down your food. Then if you don't want to take apple cider vinegar, then this, like the likes of Viridian Digestive Aid, is good. I like this one because it has HCl, it has a stomach acid in it, and it also has different digestive enzymes, like it has amylase, it has protease and lipase. So lipase breaks down fat, protease breaks down protein, and amylase breaks down starch. So your key food groups are protein, fats, and carbs. So it's breaking down all of those. And then it has foods in it like ginger root. Ginger is great for digestion. Peppermint, so someone might have peppermint tea would help. So yeah, so that's what's in it as well. So that's when I'm talking about these extra things in our fluid that we need to break down and absorb our food. And then mixing and propulsion. So that's, oh yeah, so that's another important thing. So sometimes like people might be with me and they might have constipation. And I'll talk about that in a minute for foods and what foods to have. But another cause of constipation can be when the muscles are all tight in the body and they're tight in the esophagus. So your muscles should be relaxing and contracting in your esophagus to propel the food down so it can move down into your small intestine. But if those muscles are not working right, then someone can be possibly more prone to constipation. So that's where this mixing and propulsion, this relaxation and contraction of those muscles in the walls are not working properly and not bringing the food down. And medically then there's various medication that can help to get those muscles to relax. And then from a natural medicine point of view, there's certain things too that can help them to relax, certain supplements that we're trained in giving, like a motility complex it's called, but it'll have various things in it to help those muscles to relax. Or even without taking a supplement, you know, trying to do a bit more meditation and more relaxation type things can help those muscles to relax as well. Like, you know, even Epsom salt baths and stuff. It's getting the whole body to relax, and also will get the esophagus to relax. So absorption then, so that's just really everything absorbing, you know, your molecules, and all the absorption, that's what I've highlighted there, takes place in the small intestine. So that long tube that I said is the size of a tennis court. So that really, when it's flattened, that really needs to be working properly. And then water is mostly absorbed in the colon and in your large intestine. I'll skip that quickly. It's just talking about excretion. So obviously, when you've everything digested, it needs to go out somewhere. So it goes out in your stool, and we'll talk about the stool in a minute. And that's where, you know, just think about, well, what's coming out? Water, all these metabolic waste products from all your systems working, bacteria from the colon, and anything that hasn't been digested goes out through the stool. So that's where you might look at your stool, and if you see any undigested food in your stool, that's not good. That's a sign you're not breaking down and absorbing your food very well. So the first thing you'd be thinking of is, right, make sure you're chewing your food. So back to, you're chewing it at least 10 times. And then look at your stool and see, do you notice a difference? So stomach acid, I kind of have this here because it is really important. Like people that come to me, you know, a lot of the time people can have low stomach acid, and then you could have high stomach acid, which is a different thing. You know, medically, mostly it would be high stomach acid and put on proton pump inhibitors. But often the case, it mightn't be high stomach acid. It could actually be low stomach acid. And the reason the stomach acid, so you need it to basically break down your proteins. You need it to keep your, so if you think about it, you know, you don't want to be on proton pump inhibitors. People should only be on short term. So always talk to your GP if you're on it a long time, at different ways that, like, how can you get your stomach acid down aside from taking a proton pump inhibitors, because your diet might be quite acidic and that's causing all the acid. And so if you have low bacteria, so the opposite, then you need stomach acid, right, to keep the stomach sterile, to prevent these bacteria from overgrowing. So, because nature is amazing, it's given us the stomach acid to make sure that that's a healthy environment, that you don't have all these bacteria building up. But if you're on a proton pump inhibitor long term and you're suppressing your stomach acid, then that results in less stomach acid, and you might be more prone to higher levels of bad bacteria. and more prone to maybe candida type infections. And then also the stomach acid helps to absorb your minerals. So sometimes I might see people and they're low in calcium, they're low in iron, and they might be low in magnesium. So they're low in their different minerals, and I'm trying to figure out why. And one of the things could be that they're low in the stomach acid. And so, and back to and digestive enzymes as well. So that's going right down, digging deeper, you know, as to why that obviously I'd be looking at foods to make sure they're having foods that are high in those minerals. But if their person is having a really good diet and they're having foods high in those minerals, and then you're kind of going, well, why are they feeling poorly and lacking or showing symptoms that they're low in calcium? So it possibly is because they don't have enough stomach acid. And also it helps activate this thing called intrinsic factor to absorb vitamin B12. So again, I might have a client that's low in B12 and they're supplementing, but they're still not getting their levels up. And that could be because they don't have enough stomach acid. So that's just kind of a slide recapping on what I said, you know, about stomach acid helps sterilize your food, it helps break down protein, activate pepsin. You need pepsin, it's an enzyme to break down protein. So there's loads of different benefits of it. So onto the Bristol stool chart. So is everyone familiar with the Bristol stool chart? No, I see nodding the head. Okay, great, that's good. So learning something new, because sometimes I kind of forget what people know and don't know. So this is something I always show to people in clinic. Really important, you're familiar with your stool. So I was showing it to an 11-year-old child the other day, and she was really interested in it. So yes, so you should normally is type 3 or type 4. So it should be sausage shape with, you know, a little bit of cracks on the surface, or the smooth shape here. So if you're going more constipation, that's a sign you're not getting enough fiber, or maybe not drinking enough water. So fiber being loads of vegetable, that's a common thing I see in people's diets, is not eating enough veg. And then if you're going more like kind of fluid-like, you know, that can be lacking fiber too. But then mild diarrhea, severe diarrhea, I actually have a slightly different Bristol stool chart, and that will say inflammation. It's a sign there's some type of inflammation going on if it's quite loose. So again, you're looking at, well, what type of inflammation is going on here? Is there like a food sensitivity? Is there unusual bacterial infection or yeast infection? So yeah, so trying to, you know, look at your stool and just checking if it's type 3 or type 4 and you're having 1 bowel movement a day, that's normal. Ideally, we should be having 3 a day, 1 after each meal, but I rarely come across people that do that. But having 1 a day is definitely what's healthy and what is the norm, I suppose, now, because people are not leading very active lives. And then also, but some people think, oh, going 3 times a week is normal. It's not. You need to be going every day, having a bowel movement every day, because you're releasing those toxins and hormones from your body. So I'm going to conscious of time, so I'll move on. That's just a summary of all the different systems I was talking about that are involved in our digestion. So like the liver, like I mentioned, our mouths, with the teeth. So fiber, right, so it prevents constipation, so that's key. It helps balance our hormones because it reduces estrogen levels by preventing reabsorption. So if you're not going to the toilet every day and having a full bowel movement, those estrogen levels are going to be recirculating in your system, which is not good, because high estrogen causes inflammation in the body and various, you know, hormonal issues. Like, for example, PCOS is one that I can think off the top of my head. So fiber also reduces your cholesterol levels. It helps balance your blood sugar. So if you want kind of more stable energy, it's good for that. And then there's 2 types. There's soluble and there's insoluble. So I'll just go into the 2 types now. It's kind of making sure you have a bit of both. So soluble fiber then, it's soluble because it dissolves in water. It changes when it goes through your digestive tract, where it's fermented by bacteria. So that's why we need to have these healthy levels of bacteria in our body. And it absorbs water, it becomes gelatinous. So why soluble fiber is important? It helps to lower your blood sugar levels and manage and balance or your cholesterol. So it lowers your blood cholesterol levels and balances your blood sugar level. So yeah, the insoluble fiber helps food move through your digestive system quickly and efficiently. So I suppose the insoluble fiber is really working on getting the roughage, is getting everything through, is preventing the constipation. Whereas if I go back to the soluble fiber, it was more managing your blood sugars and your cholesterol levels. But like back to, if you're not getting enough legumes and beans, you can balance your blood sugar levels through everything I'm talking about now. The key thing that imbalances blood sugars is having too much carbs in the diet and too much added sugar. So that is, it's all about having to balance your blood sugars and keep your energy stable, having protein with every meal and snack, and then just watching the amount of sugar that's in food, like carbohydrates. So fiber, and it is a thing that's common across everybody, is the average person only has about 10 grams to 12 grams of fiber a day, when the recommendations are about 25 grams for women and 38 grams for men. Now, I'll show that on a food plate in a second, because that's the easiest way to remember it. But that's why most people, when they change diet, or say people that change to being vegetarian and they feel so great, it's because they're up in all their vegetables. But there's things that are important to look out long term then when you're vegetarian, obviously making sure you're getting enough protein and that your stomach acid is working right. So to get that fiber that I spoke about there, say 25 grams for a woman. So we're looking here, so you can see how porridge, oats is a great way to get your fiber, because it's 4 grams. Weetabix or Oatabix, whole wheat cooked pasta. So just making sure you're always having, if you don't have an intolerance to gluten, that you're having the whole wheat variety. Chia seeds are great as well. So they're great if you add them to porridge, soak oats overnight in chia seeds. Your flax seeds, your sunflower seeds, have a little bit there. So, you know, adding those to your diet ups it a bit. So the chickpeas obviously are quite high. What else? Your broccoli. Vegetables actually has, you know, obviously a certain amount of fiber. Potatoes, almonds, you can see there that nuts have fiber. So beans, baked beans is a handy one too if you're stuck. Just make sure you get the beans that have no added sugar. And I'm fine with someone having beans once a week. You know, have beans in your cupboard if you're tired and you're not able to, you're too tired to make a dinner. If you have baked beans on whole meal bread, it's much better than taking a pizza out of the oven. Yeah. So this is the ideal food plate. So this is taken from a website called the Alliance of Natural Health. Now, you know, there's other things that comes to food combining and all that. Things get complicated when it comes to nutrition. So you just have to think we're all biochemically unique. We're all different. And I found the biggest learning I had was tuning into your body. So say some people mightn't be able to tolerate fruit straight after a meal, in which case that's fine. Have your piece of fruit with a bit of protein, a handful of nuts in between your meals. But the message here is half your plate should be vegetables, and then a quarter of it your starchy carbohydrates, or your whole grain foods like brown rice, brown pasta, brown bread, quinoa. You know, potatoes are fine, they're healthy, but just in moderation. Sometimes people eat too many potatoes. And then a quarter of a plate is your protein rich food, so like your meat, your fish, your beans. And then you're having a little bit of fat, a small amount of fat. So you'll see there, that's the fat, which is your nuts, your butter, and real butter, your olive oil. You know, so if you're having a salad, say at lunchtime, you're making sure you put extra virgin olive oil on your salad, because we need fats to absorb all of our fat-soluble nutrients. We've over 500 species in our GI tract. We could have even more. We'll probably have a lot more that science hasn't discovered yet, but at least 500. And in the average person that weighs about 1 kg, so a lot. And what's interesting is for every human cell, we have 10 times the bacterial cells. So we're mostly bacteria, which is why there's all this research going into now how it can help with various different illnesses. They produce B vitamins for energy. They produce vitamin K, which helps with blood clotting, so it helps thin the blood, and it helps with our bone health. So sometimes you might see in supplements for bone health, you'll see vitamin K in the health food shop. From a doctor's point of view, they'll talk about calcium and now vitamin D, but we also need magnesium and vitamin K for bone health. It strengthens our immune system to help fight infection, which is why it's always important when you take an antibiotic that you take a good probiotic afterwards. And the most researched strains are Lactobacillus acidophilus or bifidobacteria, those two strains, and they increase the absorption of minerals. So again, back to, you know, if minerals are low, you're looking at your loads of different things. You're looking at your stomach acid, but also I'd be looking to see how healthy someone's gut flora is. So what are their levels of good and bad bacteria? They help to digest lactose and dairy products. So again, if you have a problem digesting lactose, you might look at, okay, well, what's the levels of my good bacteria? Now you can test for that in a test I can show you very briefly at the end. It helps regulate peristalsis. So that's what I was talking about, that muscle contraction in our esophagus. Those muscles relaxing and contracting in our esophagus help bringing down food to our small intestine and our large intestine. The gut flora help to regulate that, and bowel movements. They help prevent vaginal and urinary tract infections. So actually now if you go into a health food shop and you look at the OptiBac brand, that brand has a special probiotic for vaginal and urinary tract infections. I can't remember the strain off the top of my head, but if you look at the package, you'll see there's a specific strain that helps for urinary tract infections. They prevent the production and absorption of toxins produced by disease-causing bacteria, which reduce the toxic load of the liver. So yeah, so if they're in balance, they're just helping to reduce that toxic load. And then you may have heard of the link between the gut and the brain via the vagus nerve. So, you know, the bugs in our gut are communicating constantly with our brain. So which is why it's important to have both in balance. So, you know, I might work with someone with severe anxiety and help get their bacteria in their gut back in balance. But then I'm saying to him, listen, you have to have the right strategies, be working with a counselor, psychotherapist, whoever, working on the mind, that you're controlling your anxiety back to your thoughts. Because if that anxiety, you know, I suppose, raises itself again, then that can affect the gut again, and the gut can become imbalanced. So how do our gut flora become imbalanced in the first place? So through age, so the older we get, we can, like everything in our body, unfortunately, it starts to slow down a little bit. Diet, so having a high processed diet that's high in sugar, salt, all artificial flavors, colorings, all of that. The processed food is, wrecks your microbiome. So you're much better eating real whole foods, natural food that our grandparents ate. Antibiotics, so they were obviously a great invention for at the time when penicillin was invented. It keeps people alive for longer, but the problem is when infections happened, but the problem is they've been overprescribed and there was no awareness of the knock-on effects they can have on wiping out the good bacteria, which we need as well. So important that antibiotics are not taken unless you really, really need to take them, and that you always take probiotic afterwards. And now in the last couple of years, GPs are recommending Aflorex. That's the go-to probiotic that they recommend. But there's numerous strains out there. That's a big kind of topical area. What else can affect the microbiome? Your stomach acid, which I mentioned, and the pancreas, the enzymes. So high in animal protein. So animal protein is quite acidic and it can imbalance the gut flora. So that's where, more red meat it would be. I'd be saying limit red meat to 3 times a week max. A low fiber diet, back to what I said about fiber. Fiber is really key. So what's key is diversity. It's having a diverse as possible a diet, and really helps with your microbiome. So trying to say to yourself, you're going to have 40 different types of foods in a week. Now, when I say 40, you'd count like herbs like basil, dill, peppermint. All of those can be counted as a food. So you're having different variety of vegetables, not having the same vegetables every single day. Say like my salad that I would have tons of different colors on it. So you're having a rainbow of salads. Like for salad, you could have cucumber, peppers, tomatoes, rocket. Rocket is great for digestion, stimulates the digestive enzymes to release all of that. You could have some sauerkraut. So sauerkraut, I'll talk about that in a second, is a fermented vegetable, fermented cabbage. So that's really good. That's high in probiotics as well. Okay, so what else affects the microbiome? The birth control pills, just some people aren't aware of that when they're on it, and other hormones like steroids and that. Alcohol, obviously, stress can deplete it. Antibiotics and steroids, which are covered. So it's all about the 5 R's. I'm just looking at time here now. Remove, replace, reinoculate, repair. So we'll send you on this afterwards. So it's like real food, and then foods to eat, food to avoid. Listen, nothing new here, I don't think. Everyone kind of knows about sugar, artificial sweeteners, wheat, processed food. And then that you're eating lots of variety, like I said, and limiting alcohol and caffeine, grains, depends on the person. So really it's back to your biochemical individuality, if that suits you or not. Prebiotic foods, probiotics. So your prebiotics feed your good bacteria, which, you know, so garlic, asparagus. Now, sometimes people that have this small intestinal bowel overgrowth won't be able to tolerate these prebiotic foods. And that's why sometimes if probiotics have prebiotics in them and you have a problem with taking them, that could possibly be a sign that you have an overgrowth of bacteria in your small intestine. But if you don't have that, these are all really good foods to have that help increase your probiotic and your good bacteria.